With a raft of changes on both sides, coupled with a packed house and a heavy pitch at six ways, it was always going to be tough to pick a winner between Worcester Warriors and Leicester Tigers. England Supremo Stuart Lancaster was in attendance, presumably to keep an eye on the likes of Toby Flood and returning Tom Croft. But it was the home side who made the early running. Only Good adding a penalty, and then some powerful play by Matt Besic, helping to release the Warriors' backs and create the opening try for David Lemmy. Good failed to convert, but Worcester continued to hammer away and got the reward of 2 penalties in 2 minutes, including the sin-binning of Martin Castrogiovanni for a strange tackle in that time for a 14-0 lead after a quarter of the match. The hosts failed to take any more advantage of the rest of the 40-man period, and inevitably Leicester hit back at the end of the half. Slick passing by the back, sending Matthew Tate through a gap to put Scott Hamilton in at the corner. Worcester's woes were compounded when referee JP Doyle decided that Good had hit Hamilton late, and the former Tiger went to the bin with the score 14-5 at the interval. In the scrum though, Leicester were always strong, and with the exit of Castrogiovanni and Lugoni Mulipola, replaced by Dan Cole and Marcus Oyertza, the visitors were immediately awarded a penalty try, and this time Flood, who had had a poor day with the boot, converted to make it a 2-point game at 14-12 with over a quarter to go. Worcester always looked the most likely in the closing stages, and it looked to be all over in the final moments with the hosts in control of the ball deep in Tigers' territory. But a smart turnover and some excellent handling and support gave Leicester a 5-yard scrum after a length of the pitch movement. Despite signs of an early shove, the Leicester scrum surged forward, and with the Warriors' pack in disarray, JP Doyle awarded a second penalty try for the Tigers to steal it at the death. Heartbreak then for Richard Hill's men, while Leicester breathed a sigh of relief. Final score at 6.
Vicarage Road played host to an Aviva Premiership fixture for the final time, with Saracens entertaining Sale. The two teams started the day at opposite ends of the table, Sale even more desperate for points after London Irish's shock victory at Kingsholm. They started brightly, 2 Danny Cipriani penalties inside the first 10 minutes, giving them a 6-0 lead. But Saracens upped their game and started to pick up their own opportunities as Sale continued to infringe at the breakdown. Owen Farrell, preferred to Charlie Hodgson at 10, slotted his first chance on 13 minutes and was also on target a further 4 times before the interval. The Saracens went in at the break, leading by 15 points to 6. The opening points of the second half went to Danny Cipriani and Sale as he brought them back to within a defensive bonus point. But almost immediately Saracens reinstated their lead through Farrell. Again, Cipriani hauled Sale back with a monster effort from inside his own half. But Saracens responded immediately again. This time with the first try of the afternoon as Brad Barrett released Dave Strettle to sprint in under the posts. It was the England wingers' first in the Premiership this season, and it gave Sarries breathing space. 5 minutes later, Strettle turned provider as his grubber kick was scooped up by Charlie Hodgson, and as Farrell maintained his perfect afternoon with the kicking tee, Saracens assured themselves of a fond farewell to Watford. Final score 32-12 to Saracens. They moved back to second in the table. Sale remained 5 points adrift.
The champions arrived in Oxford wanting to start the new year in the same way they finished a hugely successful 2012 and started with huge attacking intent straight from the kickoff. It took them only 15 minutes to register their first try, and it was that man Danny Kerr in prolific try-scoring form who crossed, having stood up Michael Hills and fended off his opposite number on the way to the posts. Shortly after, Nick Evans fed a lovely inside ball to Tom Williams in midfield, and the winger burst into the Welsh half. Moments later, George Lowe traded passes with Tom Guest, and he too went in under the post for Quinn's second. London Welsh had barely been in the contest, but got 3 points on the board through the boot of Gordon Ross. But Quinns wouldn't let up. And just before half-time, England skipper Chris Robshaw was rewarded with all his hard work with a try of his own from short range. Conversion again successful, and Quinns led 21-3. And after a stern talking to at the break, London Welsh came out with renewed intensity and rewarded with 2 more penalties, which Ross kicked, and the home side were back in the contest. Even more so when, after more sustained pressure on the Quinns line, winger Nick Scott stepped brilliantly off his left foot to go in unopposed to bring Welsh back to within 5 and hope of an unlikely win. That hope was dashed 2 minutes later though, as Carl Dixon and Ollie Lindsay-Haig combined brilliantly down the short side to put fly half Nick Evans in for the bonus point try and surely the win. Conversion again successful, and Quinns led 31-19. But again, Welsh wouldn't lie down. And an opportunist intercept from flanker Ed Jackson got them back within striking distance. But in the end, they were happy to take the bonus point as Quinn saw out the rest of the game to win 31-20.
Two sides looking to build on the feel-good factor gained from their last match of 2012 met at Adams Park. It was Bath who sprinted from the blocks, just 25 seconds on the clock, when Nick Abendinen fielded a clearance kick in his own half and surged through two rather weak Wasps tackles to give the visitors the perfect New Year start. Although Stephen Jones opened the home account from the tee moments later, when Tom Varndell saw yellow for a dangerous tackle on his opposite number, Bath were quick to exploit the gap on Wasps' left flank. Claessens nabbing his third of the season, Adams Park stunned by what they were watching. Jones kept his team in touch with the boot, but the home side eventually struck with the last play of the half. Going through phase after phase, biding their time before skipper Southwell gave wingman Wade the chance he'd been waiting for. 16-12 half-time lead, perhaps more than the home fans could have hoped for, particularly after that opening quarter of an hour. Heathcote replaced Donald at the break and proceeded to reduce the arrears. But the home side never let go of the lead, even with Talafu's try being disallowed by the TMO. Jones continued to push his team away from their guests. Chris Bell got an early birthday present courtesy of Daly and Simpson's opportunism, Abendinen receiving Bath's second yellow for his trip on Daly, by which time the game was in the bag. Wasps' unbeaten home record intact, and crucially, Di Young's team back in the top four for the first time since the beginning of last season.
Gloucester welcome London Irish with 7 places between them in the table. Irish desperate to start winning at home or away, lying as they do 1 foot off the bottom of the table. With memories of the 47-3 drubbing that Gloucester gave Irish in the Amlin, it was Freddie Burns who got the scoreboard off to a good start with the game's first penalty. 10 minutes later and Stephen Shingle was granted the opportunity to level from a scrum penalty. No mistake from the 21-year-old. Gloucester had put some pressure on the Irish try line, but it was when the visitors applied the same to the Gloucester line that they found success. George Skivington on the end of a powerful surge, using the full length of his 6'6" frame to reach over for the try. Burns was able to take the home side back to within 2 with a penalty, but a kick forward from scrum half Phibbs made Gloucester winger Monaghan panic, and Irish were able to take advantage. Phibbs was sharp enough to scoop the ball up for Skivington, who crashed over the line for his second, the conversion making it 6:15 at the break. The second half began with Burns missing another penalty effort, a perfect example of how Gloucester's afternoon was going. That and some misfiring lineouts allowing Irish off the hook from some potentially threatening situations. Burns eventually found his mark once more just before the hour to cut the deficit to 6 points. Davis ringing the changes to try and reduce the error count. A further Burns penalty took things down to 3 points and the Sheds started to believe the momentum was shifting. But Irish didn't panic. When another scrum penalty fell their way, Tom Homer opted to step up, the 6-point gap reasserted, and Gloucester facing a fraught last 9 minutes. And despite their best efforts, Irish were able to withstand the pressure, a yellow card for Will James adding to the pain. It was a spirited and controlled performance from Irish against a Gloucester side that rattled under the pressure, and a vital win for Brian Smith's men, and a losing bonus point for the home side. Final score at Kingsholm, Gloucester 12, London Irish 18.
Two teams in similar circumstances met at Sandy Park as the top 6 threatened to break away for the first time this season. Both Exeter in 6th and Northampton 1 point behind them were determined to remain in that revered company. The opening exchanges were a good indicator of how tough this game was going to be, with the home side in particular quick to get their game moving through the gears. They had to wait for nearly a quarter of an hour for some return on their efforts though. Steenson continuing his hot league kicking streak, that his 11th consecutive successful pot at goal. The visitors' response was pretty immediate. Amos kicking from Arscott, allowing his opposite number Foden to career through the home defence to set up a try for Ken Peacey. Classic counter-attack execution from Northampton. With both teams grappling for superiority, it was the kickers who had to make the difference. Myler adding 6 more points despite bouncing a simple kick off the post in between, his opposite number taking 3 back before the break, following Hartley's Sinbeny. Steenson reduced the buffer to 4 points after the break and then swapped further penalties with Myler as the game rolled towards the final quarter. That was when the Saints pack showed their true value, keeping their concentration at the third time of asking to drive a line-out ball, Suani Tongaweya unstoppable from close range. The home side responded well though, increasing their intensity to put Nakulavuki into position to strike, the Fijian powerhouse showing his power again coming off the bench to make an impact. The Arrows returning the match equation to +4 in the visitors' favour. But having established how well their driving line-up worked for Tongawaya's score, Saints decided to repeat the feat in the final 5 minutes, this time with Van Veldt on the end. The host left pointless, Northampton the first Premiership team this season to win at Sandy Park, in what could be a vital victory in the bigger scheme of things.